Good morning, Year 4s. Welcome to our maths lesson for today. So this term, we're going to be looking at fractions, which you would have been introduced to throughout Year 1, 2, and 3. So today we're just going to revise what a fraction is and kind of refresh your memory on all the things that you've learned so far. So your success criteria is to define what a fraction is, to recognize the parts and the whole, to use the correct vocabulary, and to recognize fractions in numbers and words. Okay, so before we begin with that, we're going to do our starter. So if you'd like to pause the video now and complete your starter. Okay, well done. Okay, so these are our answers. So the first one, we could have probably done that mentally of just adding the thousands, hundreds, tens, and ones together. 432 times 2, you would have done the column method, which we learned last term. This one we could have possibly done mentally as well, so multiplying any two numbers first and then the third one afterwards. And then the last two, you would have done column addition and column subtraction. Okay, so let's look at our vocabulary that we're going to need for this maths lesson. So the first word we're going to look at is a fraction. Then we're going to look at the whole, then numerator, denominator, and equal. So it would be a good idea now, if you've got a pen and paper in front of you, which you should have for maths, because we're going to do lots of practice examples. Can you please write down these words so you can refer back to them all the time? And then also just pause the video and see if you actually know or remember what any of these words mean. So just pause the video now and we will go through them afterwards. Okay, so we're going to come to fraction in a moment and whole and numerator and denominator on the next slide. If we have a look at equal, so that obviously means that it needs to be the same amount. Okay, so let's have a look at what the other four words mean. So what is a fraction? A fraction is a number which contains equal parts of a whole. So there's our second word, our second vocabulary word, whole. Okay, so a whole number could be 1 or 2 or 3, and a fraction would be smaller than that. And fractions can be smaller than or larger than one whole. So do you recognize these fractions? Do you know what they say? Can you read them? So have a go and see if you can read those fractions. Okay, well done. This one says a half, this one says a third, and this one says a quarter. And when we have fractions like this, we give the top number and the bottom number special names, which was part of our vocabulary today. So the top number, does anybody remember what the top number is called? Okay, that is called the numerator. Okay, and this is how many parts there are of the whole. And the bottom number is called the denominator. How many equal parts the whole is divided into. And it's really important that when we're dividing or sharing the parts, they are equal, they have to be the same. So let's have a look at some examples using these vocabulary words. Okay, so we're first going to look at the fraction a half. Okay, now I know you might have done this before, you might think, oh, this is quite easy, but we're going all the way back to the beginning just so we have a clear understanding of what a fraction is. So a half, you'll normally see be written like that, or you can have the word 1/2. And sometimes you might see it written like this, which you might see on your keyboard or your iPad, that this dash could be used as the fraction. So this would still be a half. Okay, so the whole would be this whole cake. Okay, we've got the whole cake and we've got the whole apple. So if we're going to split this cake into two parts, okay, so we could split it into two parts, then one of these parts would be 1/2. So if we circle one part of the cake, okay, that is 1/2. Okay, so like we said on the previous slide, the numerator stands for how many parts it is. So we've got one part out of two parts. Okay, so these two parts were a whole, but we cut them into two. And then one of those parts are 1/2. And then also this side is also 1/2. So both sides of the cake have been cut into a half. 1 out of 2 pieces. Okay, and then we've got the apple as well. So at the moment we've got a whole apple, and then we're going to cut it in half. And it's really important that it is equal. So we can't cut the apple unequally. So if we cut the apple in half into equal parts, both of those sides of the apple are now a half. So we could label that a half, and we could label that a half. Okay, let's look at another example. Okay, so here we've got 2 cauliflowers. So they're 2 separate objects, and we can still cut this in half. So if we want to say what is half of 2 cauliflowers, we'd have to make sure that we split them into equal groups. So luckily there's 2, so we've got 1 on this side, 1 on this side. So a half of 2 will be 1. Okay, so this is showing a half. And we could circle 1 as well. And we could say I've circled 1/2 of the cauliflowers. Because there is 1 out of 2 cauliflowers. Okay, so what I'd like you to do now is pause the video, and then I would like you to do the following. So I'd like you to draw a rectangle on a piece of paper, and then show me half. So it could be like your bar model. How would you show half? Then I'd like to draw a square and show me half of a square. And then we've got 2 hearts. I'd like you to draw 2 hearts and then color in 1/2 of your hearts. Okay, so pause the video now and have a go. Okay, well done. So when you showed me half of the rectangle or half of your bar, you might have split it like that. And we've split it into 2 halves. So this is 1 out of 2, and this one is 1 out of 2. Some of you might have split it this way, which is absolutely fine. But we've still split that in half. What I didn't want to see is that if you've drawn a line like that, even though that is 2 parts, those 2 parts are not equal. They're not the same. So it's really important to have equal parts. Okay, then the same with the square. You could have showed me equal parts this way. So you could have showed me a half this way. Or you could have showed me a half this way. Okay, and then when we colored in 1/2 of the hearts, you would have drawn 2 hearts and then colored in 1 of those hearts. So you've shown me you've colored in 1/2 of the 2. So all of these are representing 1/2. This is representing 1/2. This is representing 1/2. 1/2. And this is showing 1/2. Okay, so if we have to look at thirds, it is very similar. So a third can be written like that, or the word 1/3. And again, the top number is the numerator and the bottom number is the denominator. So suppose this biscuit is cut into 3 equal parts. So it's really important that they're equal. So we've got cut it in half, and then we cut it into thirds. Okay, each part is called 1/3 of the biscuit. So we write this as 1/3. So why do you think it is called a third and not a half? Have a think about that. Okay, the reason it's called a third because it is cut into 3 equal parts. And the denominator, which is the 3, is showing how many parts it is cut into. And then the numerator is what one of these stands for. So this is 1 out of 3. This one is 1 out of 3. And this piece is 1 out of 3. So each of these cut biscuits are 1/3. That is 1/3. And and that is 1/3. Okay, so what I'd like you to do now is to, on a piece of paper, draw these shapes the best that you can, and then I'd like you to color in 1/3 in each shape. So you're going to draw a rectangle and split it into 3 parts, into thirds, and color in 1/3. And you're going to draw a circle and split it into thirds. And then you're going to draw a big rectangle and split it into thirds. And in each of these pictures or shapes, I'd like you to color in 1 of those thirds. Okay, so pause the video and do that now. Okay, excellent. Okay, so if I get my highlighter, if you were going to color in 1/3, you might have wanted to color in that rectangle, so that part, that would be 1/3, because you've colored in 1 out of 3. We can write that as 1 out of 3. Some of you might have chosen to color in the middle one. You might have wanted to color in the middle one or that one. That's absolutely fine, as long as only one of them has been colored in. Okay, the same with the circle. You might have chosen this one to color in, this one, or this one. But as long as you've only colored in 1, okay, because that is 1/3. And the whole thing needs to be colored in. Okay, and then the same with this rectangle. You would have colored in 1 of these rectangles, 1 of these thirds. And that's showing 1/3. Okay, perfect. Okay, so here we've got 3 ice creams. And I would like you to circle, so you can draw the ice creams in your book, and then I want you to circle 1/3 of those ice creams. Okay, well done. So if you had circled 1/3, you would have just circled 1 ice cream, because it's 1 out of 3 ice creams. Okay, then the last one we're going to look at is quarters. So again, you've got the numerator as 1 and the denominator as 4. And our denominator, again, stands for how many parts the shape or object have. So if it is 1/4, your shape or objects will have 4 parts. If it is 1/3, it will have 3 parts. If it is 1/2, it will have 2 parts. So whatever your denominator is what it is being split up into. So these 2 shapes have not been split up at the moment. So I'd like you to draw them in your books and then split them into quarters. So pause the video and do that now. Okay, excellent. So again, it doesn't matter which way you have split the shapes, as long as you've done your best to get equal parts. So I'm going to split mine this way. So I'll do 4 parts, 4 equal parts. And then I'm going to split my square like that into quarters. Okay, so now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4 equal parts. And each of these are a quarter. So we have to color them in 1/4. Okay, we could color in 1 of those, which would be 1/4. 1 of those, which would be 1/4, which is what the numerator is standing for. So if there's 1 at the top, that is how many parts there are of the whole object or shape. Okay, so if we have a look at the next picture, we've got a pizza and we've got 4 bananas. So let's look at the pizza first. So if I cut this pizza into 4 equal parts, each part is 1/4 or 1/4 of a pizza. We write that as 1/4 or 1/4. Okay, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4. So one of these pieces is 1/4 of the whole pizza. Okay, and if we've got 4 bananas and I have to say to you, circle 1/4, how many bananas do you think you're going to circle? Okay, you're going to circle 1 banana. Because I've asked you to circle 1 quarter. So we've circled 1 out of 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then as a challenge question, is this the only way that we can split the shape into quarters? So I'd like you to pause the video now and think about if there is another way that we can split the square into quarters. Okay, excellent. So I'm sure that lots of you have thought of many different ways to split the shape. So another way that it could have been done is diagonal lines. Okay, and we can see that each part is the same, it is equal. That's really important. And we also could have done it, let's draw another square. Okay, you could have possibly split it in half and then into quarters. So you could have had 4 parts going that way, equal parts. And then if we had another square, you might have done the same thing, but going horizontally. Okay, like that. And there are possibly some other ways, but what's really important is that you've split your shape into equal parts. Okay, then another question is the blue part that is shaded representing 1 quarter? So I'd like you to pause the video and have a think about that and write your answer down. So the good way to practice your reasoning and problem solving skills is to be writing about your maths. So is the blue part that is shaded representing 1 quarter? Okay, and your answer is going to be no. And then it is really important that when we are reasoning, we have to give our reason why we are saying no or why we are saying yes. So some of you might have said yes because it is 1 out of 4 parts, which is what a quarter is, and that is correct. What's really important about these parts is that they are not equal, they're not the same. So we haven't actually shaded a quarter of this shape. So your answer could say no, because the parts are not equal, and therefore we have not covered a quarter of the shape. And what you might have wanted to do is draw some lines in your shape as well and split it into quarters. And then you might have wanted to shade it as well, 1 quarter. And then you can definitely see, just by looking at the 2 different colors, that the green is much more than the blue. So you can also see that the green is a quarter because we've split that circle equally now. So we definitely hadn't represented a quarter with that blue coloring because the sizes were not the same, they were not equal. Okay, so what we're going to do now is you're going to go into Teams and there's going to be a quiz for you to show your knowledge of a half, a third, and quarters. And when you write the answers as quarters or halves or thirds, you may want to use the dash symbol on your keypad. So it is quite tricky sometimes to find a line, a straight line. So if we wanted to do half, the best way to do it would be to draw a horizontal line like this, and then 2 underneath, for example. But you can't do that on your keypad, or your keyboard. So if you'd like to, just use the dash, which is under the question mark, and show me a half in that way. Okay, excellent. So have fun doing your quiz. I look forward to marking it and seeing all your knowledge about halves, thirds, and quarters.